I have OBJ at, what do I have him at?
You had him at 7, right?
You have him at 4. I'm actually interested. Man. I thought you were going to have him lower.
No, man. For me, man, when you look at OBJ, bro, like
I like OBJ.
Yeah,
I want to put him higher. I just can't based off last year. I think everything he's done man. Though throughout his career, he's elite, and it was just a shitty situation.
Well, I look at this, a terrible situation. He was playing injured, which he had surgery this offseason to heal himself, and he still went over 1,000 yards.
I know his worst season still had over 1,000.
That's what I'm saying. Like if that's your worst season. And you still were playing opposite Jarvis Landry, who had 1,000 yards. It's not like you got 1,000 based off of, we're just gonna feed you the rock every play. Like, no, that wasn't the case. So if you still can limp to 1,000 yards in that type of scenario, we talked about the dysfunction that the Browns had. We talked about how Baker had his worst year. We talked about how everything was just bad in that situation. And he still found a way to get over 1,000. He still found a way to be productive. So without a doubt, man, OBJ is still a top 5 receiver. And if he bounces back and Baker Mayfield lights it up, he could easily surpass one of these guys in the top 3. Like that's how I view him. The same way you talk about AB, I look at Odell in that same vein. He doesn't have the same level of consistency that AB has had year in and year out. A lot of injuries have played and quarterback play as well. Whereas with OBJ though, we always said from a sheer athletic standpoint, OBJ is the better athlete than an AB. OBJ can do everything that AB can do, but he's a lot faster as well, a lot more quicker. But the difference is, AB has always been consistent, but he's also been in a better situation too from an organizational standpoint, from a quarterback standpoint. Whereas OBJ, we talked about the dysfunction that was going on with the Giants when they was trying to figure out Eli DeGar, the Danny Dimes, talked about the head coaching situation. Then you talk about bringing him to Cleveland, and you've seen how that's played out for him as well. So I don't want to hold the organizational lack of stability and the dysfunction that he's had at quarterback against him when I know how dominant he is. I've been on the field with this dude. I know. I'm like, yo, it's certain things that you can't coach. It's certain things that you can't defend. And OBJ, he is that. He's a cheat code, bro.
Yeah, I thought I was going to have to make some type of argument for just OBJ being on the list.
No.
I didn't think you were going to have it. I really didn't. So we're on the same page there. If you look at his 2018 with the Giants, he only played 12 games. But I don't know, probably in people's minds, like they're thinking, oh, OBJ, like his best years are way behind him. His 2018, he only played 12 games, and I like to do my thing. You average it over 16 games. It would have been 1,400 yards and 8 touchdowns and over 100 receptions in that 2018 with a bum Eli.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the Browns, another shitty situation, over 1,000 yards, barely, but still
over 1,000. As his worst. Don't say barely when you're like, it's a lot of receivers that don't get that.
As his worst season, as a complete down year. So yeah, that's why I have. The problem is, I just think the guys that I have above OBJ had better seasons last year. That's about it.
Well, but this is my whole thing, though. We talk about you saying those guys had better seasons last year, but then you have AB on your list. So that's why I'm like, well, how are you going here, man? Are you going off of last year, or are you going off of body of work? Like,
no. I think
how do you weight it?
Once I get to AB, there's a drop off. That's what I mean. Or after OBJ, or like AB's kind of like that breaking point where I think those guys ahead, you're kind of nitpicking. From OBJ probably up to Mike Evans. Like if you're going to do tiers, I got my top 3 in that tier.
Okay.
Thomas, Hopkins, and Julio.
Yeah.
The next is, I think, is where you're nitpicking. Like Evans, I gave him the nod at 4 just because he has 6 1,000-yard years.
Okay.
Like his production in his career is absurd. Like
and
really
underrated.
With
Jameis too, man.
Well, he did it with Jameis.
And with Fitzpatrick as well, man.
Well, he did it with Jameis. And the only other player to do that whole 6 straight 1,000-yard years right off the bat in your career is Randy Moss.
Yeah.
And now he's got Brady in there. And I think last year, it's the same thing with the whole, he was hurt a little bit, so his numbers look like a little bit more down. But over 16 games, it's 1,424 yards and 10 touchdowns. And then the year prior, 1,524 yards and 8 touchdowns. Like those are crazy, like 2 crazy years. Like it's tough. It's tough for me to, if we're talking about OBJ, because then I got him between Evans and Tyreek Hill. That was a whole nother argument. Devontae Adams. That's what I mean. Between Evans down to OBJ, it's just kind of like nitpicking to me, and like what I want or what I'm preferring right now over the other.
I just still get surprised at how underrated Mike Evans and Keenan Allen are, man. Both of those dudes, when you look at their numbers, what they've been able to accomplish in their situations, they still don't get nowhere near the respect or notoriety that they deserve. I mean, you talk about the numbers you just read off with Mike Evans, man. Imagine if I don't know, if who not even Julio, but if DeAndre Hopkins did that, DeAndre Hopkins is getting talked about on a whole nother scale. Whereas with Mike Evans, he's been doing this and no one still even wants to put him up there in terms of a top 5 or a top 6 discussion right now. It's crazy.
No, it is. And then with the Tyreek Hill thing, I got him at 5. I was thinking between him and Evans, like, I think Tyreek Hill, I wanted to ask you this. I think he's probably more a pain in the ass for defense to scheme against.
Without a doubt.
Like, I would hate going up against him versus Mike Evans. I think you can contain Mike Evans a little easier. But I just think Mike Evans is like the total package.
Yeah. Mike Evans is as a receiver is the far and away better just receiver in terms of route running, in terms of everything that you want from a receiver standpoint. But Tyreek Hill is a nightmare to prepare for because of that speed element. It's certain things that you just, no matter what you draw up, you could draw this double team up, you could draw this coverage being, shifted towards him. When that dude gets to running, there is nothing you can do. We've seen him match it with any corner you want to put out there versus any scheme, and that speed just changes everything. Whereas with Mike Evans, man, Mike, you can still do certain things from a schematic standpoint you're not going to ever completely take him out the game, no different than with the AB, but there's certain things you can do to kind of keep them in check. We've seen that historically when the Steelers will play the Patriots, how, certain things that we can do that will minimize that person. He's still going to have impact, but it's going to drastically contain that. Whereas with Tyreek, man, it don't matter what you draw up. If he says I'm going fast right now, there's nothing you can do about it, man. And that's his game, man.
Yeah. So,
and obviously you pair him with Mahomes, who can just sling that thing wherever he needs to. That definitely helps out a ton.